The judge's daughters cried every night, until the new nanny did the impossible. Judge Richard Simmons was known throughout the town of Brookfield as a strict and unyielding man, but few knew the torment that plagued his own home. His 4 daughters woke every night in desperate sobs, clinging to each other in the same room as if trying to protect themselves from something invisible and terrifying. It was on a rainy March morning that Emily Parker arrived at the judge's imposing house, carrying only a small suitcase and a mysterious letter of recommendation. The neighbor who had referred her, Mrs. Jenkins, was a woman no one really knew, but who seemed aware of everything happening on the street. "Do you really need a nanny?" Emily asked, studying the weary face of the 50-year-old man who greeted her at the door. "More than you can imagine," Richard replied, running a hand through his graying hair. "My daughters. They're going through a difficult time." Emily immediately sensed something strange about the house. The silence was too heavy for a home with 4 children, and the hallways seemed to hold secrets no one dared to share. The walls were decorated with old portraits, but there were empty spaces, as if some photos had been deliberately removed. "Where are the girls?" she asked, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "They must be in their rooms. They don't like talking to strangers much," Richard said, avoiding the new nanny's gaze. Emily's first impression of the 4 sisters was unsettling. Samantha, the eldest at 12, carried an immense weight on her shoulders. Her brown eyes were always alert, as if watching something only she could see. Olivia, 10 years old, hid behind her older sister, nervously tugging at her blonde hair. The twins, Madison and Mackenzie, 8 years old, were like inseparable shadows, whispering to each other in a language only they understood. "Hello, girls," Emily said with a gentle smile. "I'm Emily, and I'll be taking care of you for a while." The 4 watched her in silence, like frightened little animals assessing whether she posed any danger. It was Samantha who finally spoke. "The last nanny left a week ago. She said she couldn't sleep here." "Why couldn't she sleep?" Emily asked, crouching to their level. The sisters exchanged meaningful glances, but none answered. That was when Emily noticed something peculiar. They all avoided looking down a specific hallway, as if something there deeply unsettled them. That first night, Emily discovered what all the previous nannies had faced. Around 2 in the morning, desperate screams echoed through the house. She rushed to the girls' room and found them huddled together in Samantha's bed, crying as if pursued by something terrible. "Shh, it's all right," Emily said, approaching slowly. "I'm here." "She'll leave," Madison sobbed. "She always leaves when we're bad." "Who leaves, sweetheart?" The girls exchanged glances again, but stayed silent. Emily noticed they kept staring at the door, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Richard appeared in the doorway, his face etched with the bitterness of someone who had witnessed this scene many times before. "I'm sorry, Emily. They have these episodes every night. The doctor said it's normal after what happened, but..." "What happened?" she asked, rocking Mackenzie in her arms to soothe her. The judge hesitated, looking at his daughters with an expression that mixed pain and something like guilt. "Their mother left us 6 months ago. It was complicated." Emily realized there was much more to this story than he was telling, but she decided not to press the matter at that moment. The girls needed calm, and she needed to earn their trust before uncovering the truth. Over the following days, Emily carefully observed the family's routine. Richard would leave early for the courthouse and return late, always tense and withdrawn. The girls spent most of their time together, but there were certain parts of the house they completely avoided. The hallway leading to the end of the 2nd floor was one such place, as was the main living room and most notably a bedroom that always remained locked. "Why don't you girls play in the living room?" Emily asked during breakfast. "Daddy doesn't like it," Olivia replied, stirring her cereal without eating. "And why don't you like that hallway upstairs?" The twins stopped eating and exchanged glances. Samantha quickly changed the subject. "Can we play in the garden today?" Emily noticed that every time she asked questions about certain parts of the house or about their mother, the girls grew visibly uncomfortable and changed the topic. It was as if there were forbidden subjects in that family. On the 3rd night, she decided to stay awake to observe more closely. She hid in the hallway near the girls' room and waited. Around 2 o'clock, like clockwork, the screams and cries began. But this time Emily paid attention to the details. "We're sorry, Mommy," Samantha sobbed. "We promise to be good." "Don't leave again," Olivia pleaded through tears. "We won't make a mess anymore," the twins whispered. Emily's heart ached. The girls weren't just having nightmares, they were apologizing to someone who was no longer there. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, while the girls played in the garden, Emily decided to explore the house more carefully. It was when she went upstairs that she noticed something strange. There was a locked door at the end of the hallway, and beneath it, someone had placed wilted flowers, flowers that looked like they'd been placed there recently. "Miss Emily can't go there," a voice said behind her. Emily turned and saw Samantha on the stairs, watching her with a worried expression. "Why can't I go there, sweetheart?" "Daddy said it's dangerous, that there are broken things." But Emily noticed the girl looked at the door with a mix of fear and longing that went far beyond concern for broken objects. "Samantha, tell me about your mother." The girl turned pale and ran down the stairs. Emily followed and found her hugging her sisters in the garden, all whispering to each other with frightened expressions. That afternoon, while preparing the girls' snack, Emily overheard a conversation that changed everything. She was in the kitchen when she heard Richard speaking on the phone. "No, Judge, they haven't gotten better. They still have the same symptoms. Yes, I know it's important for them to know the truth, but I can't. I can't do that to them. They've already suffered too much." When he realized Emily had overheard, his face flushed with anger. "This is none of your business," he said coldly. "You're here to take care of the girls, not meddle in family matters." "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. The rules are clear. Take care of the girls, don't ask questions, and above all, don't go into the upstairs bedroom. Is that clear?" Emily nodded, but her mind buzzed with questions. What truth did the girls need to know? Why was the judge so desperate to hide something? That night, she decided to try a different approach. When the screams began, instead of just comforting them, she climbed into bed with all 4 girls and began speaking softly to them. "You know it's not your fault, right?" "What's not our fault?" asked Samantha, wiping away her tears. "Whatever happened to your mother? I'm sure it wasn't your doing." The girls fell silent for a long moment. It was Olivia who finally spoke. "But we were really bad. We fought a lot, made a huge mess, that's why she left." "Who told you that?" "No one did, but we know," replied Madison, "because after she left, Dad got really mad at us." Emily began to understand. The girls had created a version of the story where they were to blame for what had happened to their mother, and apparently Richard hadn't done anything to correct that belief. Girls. Mothers don't leave because their kids make a mess. Mothers love their children no matter what. "Then why did she leave?" asked Mackenzie in a shaky voice. Emily didn't know how to answer because she didn't know the truth herself, but she was determined to find out. The next day, while Richard was at work, Emily decided to investigate on her own. She started by talking to the neighbors, pretending to just be friendly. That's how she got to know Mrs. Jenkins better, the mysterious woman who had recommended her for the job. "Those poor children," the elderly woman sighed, shaking her head. "Ever since Jennifer disappeared, they haven't been the same." "Disappeared?" asked Emily, trying not to sound too eager. "Well, not exactly, but she left one night and never came back. Judge Richard says she abandoned them, but I don't believe that. Jennifer loved those girls more than life itself." "Where is she now?" Mrs. Jenkins glanced around as if afraid someone might hear. "No one knows for sure. Some say she went to stay with family out in the country. Others say she wasn't quite right in the head those last few months before she left." Emily felt a chill in her stomach. She was starting to realize the story was far more complicated than Richard had let on. "Mrs. Jenkins, could you tell me anything more about what happened?" The old woman hesitated, then leaned in and whispered, "Jennifer was acting very strange those last few months, crying a lot, staying in her room, barely speaking to the girls. Judge Richard tried to help, but I think she had that sadness sickness, you know? Depression, that's what they call it. And then she left. One morning I saw her leaving the house with a small suitcase. She was crying hard, never saw her again after that day." Emily returned home with a heavy heart. Now she understood why the girls blamed themselves. If their mother had been sad and distant those last few months, they might easily have thought it was because of their behavior. But there were still so many unanswered questions. Why did Richard keep the room locked? Why did the girls seem so afraid of certain parts of the house? And most importantly, where was Jennifer now? That night, Emily made a risky decision. When everyone was asleep, she went down to the kitchen and took a set of keys she'd seen Richard hide in a drawer. Silently, she climbed to the second floor and, with her heart pounding, unlocked the door to the sealed room. What she saw took her breath away. The room looked exactly as if someone might return at any moment. Clothes folded in the dresser, beauty products on the vanity, a half-finished cup of coffee on the nightstand. But what caught her eye most were the dozens of the girls' drawings scattered across the bed, all with loving messages. To the most beautiful mom in the world. Come back soon, Mommy. Sorry for being bad. There was also a stack of handwritten letters on the desk. Emily picked one up with trembling hands and read, "My darling girls, Mommy can't get out of bed anymore. It's not your fault, it was never your fault. Mom is sick, but not in her body, in her heart and mind. I need to leave for a while to heal. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. I love you more than anything in the world, and one day I'll explain everything." The letter wasn't finished. Emily noticed there were other similar letters, all incomplete, as if Jennifer had tried multiple times to explain to her daughters what was happening to her, but couldn't find the right words. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Quickly, she put the letter away and left the room, locking the door. Richard appeared at the top of the stairs, his face furious. "What are you doing here?" I heard a noise and came to check," Emily lied. "And why was the key in your hand?" Emily realized she'd been caught. There was no way to deny it. "Judge Richard, we need to talk." They went downstairs to the living room in silence. Richard poured himself a glass of whiskey with trembling hands, and Emily could see he was suffering deeply. "You have no right to enter that room," he finally said. "And the girls have the right to know where their mother is," Emily replied firmly. Richard stared at her for a long moment, and in his eyes she saw a pain so deep it was almost unbearable. "You don't understand anything," he said, his voice breaking. "Nothing. Then explain it to me. Tell me what really happened to Jennifer." Richard sank into the armchair as if the weight of the world were on his shoulders. She had a breakdown, a terrible one. It started about 8 months ago after she lost her job. At first I thought it was just stress, but it got worse. She stopped eating, sleeping, talking to us. She spent whole days in bed, crying. And the girls? They tried to help. They drew pictures, brought her flowers, sang to her. But nothing worked. Jennifer was gone, like she wasn't even there anymore. Emily felt tears in her eyes, imagining the 4 girls desperately trying to bring their mother back. What happened that night? Richard closed his eyes as if reliving a painful memory. She had tried to hurt herself a few weeks before. I hid it from the girls, of course, but that night she woke up and said she had to leave, that she couldn't be a mother anymore, that she was destroying the girls' lives just by existing. And you let her go? I tried to convince her to stay, tried to tell her we'd get help, but she had already made up her mind. She said if I really loved her, I'd let her go before she did something worse. Emily began to understand the complexity of the situation. Jennifer hadn't abandoned her family because she didn't love them. She had left because she loved them too much and believed her presence was hurting her daughters. Where is she now? In a clinic in rural Vermont. She's getting treatment, but the doctors say it could take a long time, maybe years. And why don't the girls know? Richard stood abruptly, pacing the room. Because they're children, because they wouldn't understand. It's easier for them to think their mother left than to know that she's sick like this. Easier for them or for you? The question hit Richard like a punch. He stopped pacing and stared at Emily, his eyes filled with tears. "You think this is easy for me? You think I don't ache to bring my wife back? The girls ask about her every day, and I have to make up excuses, pretend she doesn't love us. But they blame themselves. They think their mother left because they were bad. And you think it's better for them to know their mother chose to leave rather than stay with them? Emily realized Richard was also suffering under a twisted version of the truth. He believed that Jennifer had rejected them, when in truth she had left out of love, in a desperate attempt not to harm them further. "Mr. Richard, may I ask you something? Do you still keep in touch with her?" He hesitated before answering. "The doctors, they said it's better not to have contact with family for now, that it could interfere with her treatment." "When was the last time you spoke to her?" 2 months ago. She asked about the girls, but when I started telling her about their nighttime episodes, she panicked, said it was her fault, that she'd ruined her daughter's lives. The doctor had to sedate her." Emily began to see the destructive cycle that had formed. Jennifer blamed herself for causing trauma to her daughters, the girls blamed themselves for causing their mother's departure, and Richard blamed himself for failing to keep the family together. "What if I told you there's a way to break this cycle?" Richard looked at her with a mix of hope and skepticism. "What do you mean?" "The girls won't get better until they know the truth. And Jennifer won't get better as long as she believes she's a burden on the family. Someone needs to cut this chain of guilt. And how do you plan to do that?" "First, by telling the girls the truth, in a way they can understand." Richard shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. They're too young to understand depression, mental illness. They're also too young to understand abandonment, but that's what they're living through every day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out." Now, continuing, Emily spent the next few days observing the girls with a different perspective. Now that she knew the truth, she could clearly see the signs of trauma and guilt in each of them. Samantha, as the oldest, carried the weight of protecting her sisters and tried to stay strong for everyone. Olivia had developed a habit of blaming herself for anything that went wrong. The twins had retreated into their own world, communicating only with each other. During a rainy afternoon while they played in their room, Emily decided to try a gentle approach. "Girls, do you remember Mommy before she got sad?" All 4 stopped playing immediately. Samantha looked at her warily. "Daddy said we're not supposed to talk about that." "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes talking about the people we love helps us feel better." Olivia was the first to break the silence. "She used to make pancakes on Sundays and sang us to sleep," Madison added. "She knew every song in the world," said Mackenzie, smiling for the first time in days. "And when we were scared, she let us sleep in her bed," Samantha recalled, her eyes glistening. "She sounds like she was a wonderful mother," Emily said. "And do you remember when she started getting sad?" The girls exchanged glances. It was Samantha who answered. "It was after she lost her job. She cried a lot and stayed in her room for hours." "And did you try to help her?" "We made drawings," Olivia said. "And brought her flowers from the garden," the twins added. "But it didn't work," Samantha finished, her voice breaking. "She just got sadder and sadder until she left." Emily knelt to meet the girls at eye level. "And do you think it was your fault she got sad?" They all nodded, tears in their eyes. "Girls, can I tell you something very important? Sometimes people get sick, but not in their bodies. They get sick in their hearts and minds. It's an illness called depression." "Like a cold?" Mackenzie asked. "Similar. But instead of a stuffy nose, it makes your heart feel very heavy and sad. And it's no one's fault when it happens." "But we made a huge mess," insisted Olivia. "All children make messes, sweetheart. That's normal. Mothers don't leave because their kids make messes." Samantha looked her straight in the eyes. "Then why did she leave?" Emily took a deep breath. She knew she was going against Richard's orders, but she also knew the girls needed the truth. "She didn't leave because she didn't love you. She left because she loved you too much." "I don't understand," said Madison. "Your mum was so sick, so sad, that she thought her presence was making you sad too. So she decided to go somewhere she could heal, so that one day she could come back and be the mother you deserve." "Is she coming back?" asked Mackenzie, her eyes shining. "She's trying to get better so she can," Emily replied, choosing her words carefully. That night, for the first time in months, the girls didn't wake up screaming. Emily found them sleeping peacefully, holding on to each other, not out of fear, but for comfort. Richard noticed the change immediately. "What did you do?" he asked the next morning. "I told them the truth, in a way they could understand. I told you not to interfere. And I told you they had a right to know." Their argument was interrupted when Samantha walked into the kitchen. "Daddy, Emily said Mom is sick, not that she left because she didn't love us." Richard looked at his daughter with panic in his eyes. "Samantha, is it true, Daddy? Is Mom sick?" Richard found himself at a crossroads. He could keep lying to his daughter, or finally tell the truth. He glanced at Emily, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Yes, sweetheart. Mom is sick." "And will she get better?" "The doctors are taking care of her." Samantha ran to hug her father, and Richard finally broke down. He cried like he hadn't in months, holding his daughter tightly. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." "It's okay, Daddy. You were sad too." That afternoon, all 4 girls asked to see their mother's room. Richard hesitated, but with Emily's encouragement, he unlocked the door that had been sealed for months. The girls stepped inside quietly, touching their mother's belongings with reverent care. They found the drawings they had made for her scattered across the bed, and tears of relief streamed down their faces. "She kept all of them," whispered Olivia. "That means she loves us," said Madison. "She always did," added Mackenzie. Richard walked to the desk and picked up one of Jennifer's unfinished letters. "She tried to explain to you, but she couldn't find the right words." "Can I finish the letter for her?" asked Samantha. Richard looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "If she couldn't explain it to us, maybe we can explain to her that we understand." Emily smiled. The girl had found a way to turn pain into connection. That night, all 4 girls gathered in their mother's room to write a letter together. Emily helped them with the harder words, but the ideas were all theirs. "Dear Mom," Emily explained that you're sick, but not in your body. It's your heart. We understand now. It's not your fault, and it's not ours. You didn't leave because you don't love us. You left because you love us so much you want to get better so you can be the best mom in the world for us. We love you so much, and we'll wait for you to come back. Don't rush, Mom. We want you to heal properly. Daddy is taking care of us, and Emily is too. We're a strong family, and we'll be okay until you come home. Love your daughters who adore you. Samantha, Olivia, Madison, and Mackenzie. Richard read the letter with tears in his eyes. Do you want to send this to Mom? Can we? The twins asked in unison. I can ask the doctors if it's a good idea. In the following days, the house began to transform. The girls started playing in every room again. Smiles returned to their faces. And for the first time in months, Richard saw his daughters being children once more. It was a week later when the phone rang. It was Dr. Williams, the psychiatrist, treating Jennifer. Judge Richard, we have news. Jennifer has shown significant improvement these past few days. She's more communicative and has expressed interest in talking about the family. Richard felt his heart race. That's good? Very good. In fact, we'd like to suggest a new approach, a family therapy session where you could talk via video call under supervision. The girls, are they ready for this? According to our reports, they've been handling the situation very well since learning the truth. Richard looked at Emily, who had overheard the conversation. Judge, can I talk to the girls and call you back? When he told his daughters about the possibility of speaking with their mother, their reaction was pure joy. When? Asked Samantha. Tomorrow afternoon, if you'd like. We do, they all chimed in unison. That night, the girls gathered to decide what they would say to their mother. They wanted to tell her about school, their games, and how they were tending to the garden she loved so much. They wanted to show her they were okay, that she didn't need to worry about them. The next day, the whole family gathered in the living room for the video call. When Jennifer's face appeared on the screen, there was a moment of emotional silence. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze shone with love as she saw her daughters. My princesses, she whispered, her voice trembling. Mommy, the girls cried out together. You've all grown so much. Mom, we understand now. Samantha said. "We know you're sick and need to get better." Jennifer began to cry. "I'm so sorry, my loves. I'm so sorry for leaving you." "You didn't leave us, Mom," Olivia interrupted. "You went to take care of yourself so you could come back to us." "We've been taking care of your garden," Madison said. "And we kept all your drawings," Mackenzie added. Jennifer looked at Richard over the girls' heads. "How did they—" "Emily," he said simply. "Our nanny. She helped them understand." Jennifer turned her gaze to Emily, who stood at the back of the room. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for taking care of my family." The call lasted only 15 minutes, but it was enough to start rebuilding the bridge that had been broken. The girls talked about school, showed new drawings, and most of all, showed their mother they were okay. After the call ended, Richard approached Emily. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For showing me that the truth, even when it hurts, is always better than a lie." In the weeks that followed, video calls became routine. Jennifer began participating in the girls' lives from a distance, helping with homework, telling bedtime stories, and singing the songs they had missed so much. Slowly, she started improving. The doctors reported that reconnecting with her family was crucial to her treatment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 months after the first video call, Dr. Williams called with news that would change everything. Jennifer is ready for an in-person visit. Of course, it will be supervised and brief, but we believe it will be beneficial for everyone. Richard felt a mix of joy and nervousness. She's really better. Significantly. The therapy is working, and most importantly, reconnecting with all of you has given her a reason to fight the depression. And if she relapses? It's always a risk, Judge Richard. But keeping her isolated from the family is also a risk. Sometimes we need to have the courage to take the next step. When Richard told the girls, they were overjoyed. "When?" asked Samantha, jumping with excitement. "Next Saturday. She's coming for lunch with us." "Let's make a special lunch," said Olivia. "With pancakes for dessert," shouted the twins. The week leading up to the visit was intense. The girls cleaned the entire house, made welcome signs, and picked out their prettiest clothes. Richard grew nervous, worried their expectations were too high. "What if she doesn't stay?" he asked Emily the night before. "What if she does?" she replied. "Richard, you can't live in fear of what might happen. You have to live in what's happening now." On Saturday morning, a car pulled up in front of the house. Jennifer stepped out with a nurse, but it was clear she was in control of her own life again. She was thinner, with a few grey hairs that hadn't been there before, but her eyes sparkled with life. The girls rushed to hug her, and for a moment it felt like she had never left. Richard watched from a distance, still unable to believe his wife was really there. "Hi," she said to him shyly. "Hi," he answered, his voice thick with emotion. Lunch was a mix of joy and nostalgia. Jennifer laughed at the girls' stories, marveled at how much they'd grown, and for the first time in a long while, the family felt whole. But Emily noticed an underlying tension. Jennifer was clearly trying hard to seem okay, and Richard was walking on eggshells, afraid to say anything that might trigger another crisis. It was during dessert that Madison, with childlike innocence, asked the question everyone had been avoiding. "Mommy, are you staying now?" Jennifer hesitated, glancing at her nurse. "Not today, sweetheart. Mommy still needs a little more time at the clinic." "But will you come back forever someday?" pressed Mackenzie. "I hope so, my love. I really hope so." It wasn't the definitive answer the girls wanted, but it was honest. And somehow, that was more comforting than false promises. After Jennifer left, the girls were sad, but not as heartbroken as Emily had expected. They had seen their mother, talked to her, felt her love, and for now, that was enough. "She'll come back," Samantha said with certainty. "How do you know?" asked Richard. "Because she looked at us the same way she used to, with that bright, loving look in her eyes." The visits became regular, first every other week, then weekly. Jennifer started joining family decisions over video calls, helping with school problems, giving advice, being a mother even from a distance. And gradually, Richard began to notice changes in himself too. The anger he'd carried for months started turning into understanding. He began individual therapy, working through his own feelings of abandonment and guilt. It was Emily who suggested it might be time for an honest conversation between the couple. "You two never really talked about what happened," she said. "Jennifer left during a crisis, and you were angry, but you never processed it together. What if she tells me she doesn't want to come back? What if she says she does?" The conversation happened on a Sunday afternoon, with the girls playing in the yard and Emily watching them. Richard and Jennifer sat in the living room face to face for the first time in over a year. "I'm sorry," she said, tears already falling before he could speak. "Me too," he replied. "I'm sorry I didn't know how to help you." "I was drowning, Richard. Every day was a struggle to get out of bed, to pretend I was okay. And seeing the girls trying to cheer me up only made me feel worse because I thought I didn't deserve their love. Why didn't you tell me this? Because I was ashamed. Ashamed I couldn't be the mother they deserved, the wife you deserved." Richard stepped closer and took her hands. "Jennifer, you've always been the mother and wife we needed. Even when you were sick, even during the crisis, I never doubted your love for us. But I left. You stepped away to take care of yourself. That's different." They talked for hours, clearing up misunderstandings, working through hurts, rediscovering the love that had never truly disappeared. "I want to come home," she finally said. "And I want you to come home, but only when you're ready, truly ready." 2 months later, Judge Williams gave the news the whole family had been waiting for. "Jennifer is ready to come home. She'll still need regular therapy, but she can resume her family life." Jennifer's return was carefully planned. First, she spent a weekend at home, then a full week. Finally, she was back for good. Emily knew her role there was coming to an end. The family didn't need her the same way anymore. But when she mentioned she was thinking of leaving, she was surprised by the girl's reaction. "You can't go," said Samantha. "Why not, sweetheart?" "Because you're part of our family now." Richard and Jennifer exchanged a glance and smiled. "Emily," Jennifer said, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us." "You literally saved our family," Richard added. "I just told the truth," Emily replied. "You were the ones brave enough to face it." "Stay with us," Olivia pleaded. "Not as a nanny, but as family." Emily looked at the 4 girls, then at the couple, and realized she'd found something she didn't know she was searching for: a home. "For a while," she said, smiling. "For a while, I'll stay." Months passed, and the house, once haunted by nighttime screams, became a home filled with laughter and love. The girls went back to being normal kids, with normal school and friend problems. Richard rediscovered the joy of being a father. Jennifer, with regular therapy, rebuilt her confidence as a mother and wife. And Emily found in them the family she'd always dreamed of having. The truth, which had been so feared by all, turned out to be the tool that set them free. The tears that once seemed endless became tears of joy. The cries of despair turned into laughter of happiness. One Sunday morning, nearly a year after her arrival, Emily walked into the kitchen to find Jennifer making pancakes, with all 4 girls helping. Richard sat at the table reading the paper, occasionally smiling at the family's antics. "Good morning, family," Emily said. "Good morning," they all chimed back. And Emily knew she'd done the impossible. She'd turned a house full of pain into a home full of love. Not through magic or miracles, but through the most powerful tool there is: the truth, spoken with love and compassion. The judge's daughters no longer cried every night. Now they slept peacefully, wrapped in the love of a family that had learned the truth, no matter how painful, always sets you free. And that true love doesn't just survive storms. It grows stronger after weathering them. The new nanny had done the impossible. She'd restored hope to a family that had lost faith in happiness. And in the process, she'd found her own happiness too. Because sometimes saving others is the best way to save ourselves. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Emily made the right choices by revealing the truth to the girls? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know if you've ever been in a similar situation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.